Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers here with attorney Alex Palamara, and we're going to discuss one of Alex's resolved cases against Prudential Disability Insurance Company. And Alex, you've had many cases against Prudential. This one in particular, let's find out about what the case was about, how you helped the client, and some tips for people that will help them with their Prudential claims. So first, tell us the background of the case.
So my client worked for KPMG, a big professional services company. They help people with, or help corporations with audits and taxes and accounting services and whatnot. He worked there as a advisory manager, worked there for over 7 years, worked his way up there. It was a good job, a good living. Unfortunately for him, he had a couple, I would say, family issues, I would say, going through a nasty divorce and custody issues and whatnot. It really impacted him. He was actually, probably starting about in 2017, was treating. He was going to weekly treatment with a licensed clinical social worker, treating with a psychiatrist, medications, whatnot. But unfortunately, his situation just got worse and worse and worse. It was impacting his ability to work, impacting his ability to concentrate, impacting his ability to sleep, and just various impacts on him that he just could not do his job. His job required a lot of concentration, a lot of attention to detail, and he just was not able to do that anymore. So fortunately for him, KPMG provides its employees with disability insurance coverage. They give a short-term and long-term disability insurance policies. And normally I'd say fortunately it was with Prudential, but in this situation it was not. And what's kind of funny about this case is that he made a claim for disability benefits under the short-term disability policy first. And what happened? That claim was approved and paid for the entire time period. But when it got to the long-term disability claim,
who managed the short-term?
Prudential did as well. The fully insured policy by Prudential paid the full short-term disability claim. And when long-term was set to kick in...
Was that 180 days of short-term?
Yeah, correct. 6 months, essentially 6 months of short-term. On the day that it runs out, long-term disability is supposed to kick in, and somehow Prudential thinks he magically got better. And on the stroke of midnight, he magically got better. Now he can go back to work.
Okay, so the person who decided the long-term, was that the same person as the short-term?
No, different. They try to keep them separate, like two separate entities. So it's a different person at long-term making a decision than people at short-term. However, they have the files from short-term, so they're seeing all the reviews that short-term did. And those files are in the long-term disability claim file. And he ended up coming to us after he got denied long-term disability benefits.
So what did the person who was on the long-term see differently than the short-term? And then what did that long-term disability analyst from Prudential rely upon to deny benefits?
So what they get all the medical records, and he goes, I'm going to do a new review. So they go out and they find a psychiatrist, an independent physician consultant who's board certified in psychiatry, do a review of the medical records. Now, when I tell you these medical records, that they're so supportive, obviously treating with the licensed clinical social worker that I mentioned earlier, and that social worker could not be more supportive of this claim. I mean, she's been treating him since 2017 on a weekly basis. She knows this person better than anybody else, and knows his conditions, sees the highs and lows that he's going through, and she was, I mean, on 10 different letters over the course of his application, was so strong in supporting this guy cannot work at this time. There's no way he can do this job. She applied it to the requirements of his occupation, the duties of his occupation. There's just no way he could do it. And what Prudential did is to go out and find this psychiatrist, who they call independent, but of course they're paying for his opinion. And this doctor, without really giving any good reasons of why he was disagreeing with the thoughts of a treating provider, said, no, there's not enough here. I don't see an increase in care. I don't see him being admitted to an inpatient facility or anything like that. So I don't think there's enough here to find this person disabled, despite the person who's seen him for 4 years plus saying this person's disabled.
Now, you said clinical social worker. Was there any other types of medical professionals involved?
Other therapists and also a primary care physician. He was not treating with a psychiatrist. His primary care physician was the one prescribing the various medications. They were trying different things and different dosages and whatnot, different medications. So yes, he could have been treating with a psychiatrist. It could have been more helpful, but you don't always need to. He had a level of support there to help him with his issues.
I was going to ask you that because, look, this particular client had very good care from a clinical social worker. However, had we been involved in the application process or the short-term disability claim, which we were not, I think we would have always recommended, look, whether you need it or not, your internal medicine doctor may be doing a great job for you, but you have to consult with a psychiatrist to get that person on board to your team.
100%.
Meaning it's like, it's just saying, how many more people can I have in my corner to make it as strong as possible? So that would be a tip that I would have given to this person or any person. If you have an anxiety or depression claim, you need to get a psychiatrist on board, even if you only go to them once every 2 months. Even if you go to them and they say, look, I don't know, you don't need meds or whatever, which, you just have to have that person in your corner, because you want to say, I have done everything I could do to possibly exhaust treatment for this medical condition. So anyhow, sorry to interrupt you. So what was your strategy in light of this denial to get this claimant approved?
Well, I went back to the licensed clinical social worker. I went back to the primary care physician, and I got more support for this claim. I mean, the support was already there, but I got even updated support. And this appeal was mostly based on arguments. Well, people have to realize that mental health claims, they're different. And they're different because there's no objective evidence to prove a mental health case. You can't have an MRI of your brain and say, this guy has depression. You can't do a blood test and say, this guy has depression or PTSD or anxiety or whatever it is. So what you have to do is you have to take the notes, the medical records, and the opinions of the treating providers and put it in such a way to show that that what they're saying is true. And keep in mind, again, these treating providers are the only people that are actually sitting down and talking to this person over a course of months and years. And the only way you can actually diagnose these claims, again, there's no blood test, is actually by sitting down, speaking with, evaluating, and treating a person over a lengthy period of time. Because that's the only way you can really know. I mean, you could look at, take a look at a psychology book and say, these typical symptoms of depression is this, this, and this. And just because someone writes it on a paper doesn't make them to be depressed. But if you speak with a person and spend a lot of time with them, then you know what they're going through. So we had to extrapolate out of the treating providers more dynamic descriptions of what they see from this person. And then we put it all into appeal. I point out in the appeal that this independent physician consultant that they're relying upon, all he's doing is a paper review of medical records. He's never actually met with this person, never evaluated this person. He's basically just doing a Monday morning quarterbacking job on the medical records and saying, there's not enough here to find this person disabled, despite the people that are actually treating him saying this guy needs disability benefits. He cannot work at this time. If he goes to work, he's going to mess up, get fired, and cost an account or a business millions of dollars potentially. So made those arguments in there that, and most courts even say, there's even case law that says that mental health claims are a different breed, and they need to do more than just doing these file reviews. They should do, at the very least, multiple file reviews, or if they should really do is independent medical examinations, where they actually have a psychiatrist meet with the person in person and evaluate them.
The other thing I find challenging in these psychology claims, that usually the psychologist, clinical social worker, psychiatrist, they don't have great notes because they're kind of building this relationship with the claimant. And they get to know the claimant because they're seeing them often, and so they're really just they're not documenting their records thinking some insurance company is going to come reading my records.
100%.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, have to cash pay because a lot of insurance doesn't pay for psychological treatment. So when the insurance companies get the notes, usually the notes have minimal content in them.
100%. I mean, the notes are written to treat the person,
right,
not convince some guy in an ivory tower 6 months from now that this person that I've been treating is disabled. They're there to treat him, so next week when he comes in or the next couple days to come in, where do we leave off, And
your claim with most of the KPMG employees that we've represented and other employees from Deloitte and EY and similar companies, these are very high wage earners, significant six-figure wage earners, and these monthly benefits on average are $7,500 and upwards of $30,000 a month sometimes. So they're also highly scrutinized, especially by Prudential as well when they look at it. So after you submitted, what was the time frame and what ended up happening?
It's a quick one. So we filed the appeal, and within 40 days or so, we got a letter back saying we're approving the claim for benefits. Our appeal was just that strong. We stressed the fact that he didn't magically get better at the stroke of midnight once short-term ran out, long-term was going to kick in. The level of treatment didn't change. The support from the treating providers didn't change. So they had no choice but to approve this claim for long-term disability benefits. And yes, our client's only going to be on claim for 24 months because it's a mental health claim, and most disability insurance policies limit such benefits to a total of 24 months. But he's going to get it the entire 24 months or until he's able and ready to return to work.
Well, that's a great outcome for this client of ours. I know that even though it is 24 months, it's not unusual that they're going to challenge this again in a couple months. So he has to continue treating with his doctor regularly, seeing his internal medicine doctor, keeping up with his with his medication regimen. And now that we've been able to guide our client, I know the medical records are going to be stronger and really document more information. Plus, we always tell our clients, go in and have the doctor include notes that you've taken of things that you've experienced, thoughts that you've had, difficulties that you've experienced, so that it gets into the medical records, and that's only going to make the claim stronger. So if you're someone out there who has a Prudential long-term disability insurance claim, no matter where you live in the country, we're happy to provide you with a free immediate phone consultation.